Hey people, it's me. I think it's about time I made an intro, so here goes. On my channel, I talk about being black and managing mental health, so I'm just going to walk you through my personal journey so you can fully understand my passion. I've been like this ever since I can remember. Sometimes I'm vocal, sometimes I'm not. One of my high school teachers finally noticed some potential underneath it all and decided to help me hone into it. The only problem is, men started seeing it too. Insert ex-husbands, who were great initially. Who was providing. I started getting more attention. He didn't handle it well. I had a little fun modeling in college. But after studying, I wanted us to have fun. College parties were supposed to be for networking and having fun. But those dudes in the back right there, yep, he wanted them gone. So I'm not the registrar, so I didn't know what he wanted me to do about it. I read some books or whatever. Figured out that maybe womanhood is the answer. I told myself I'd give it a shot. I cooked other things. Then I cut my hair short for transformative purposes. Fought off thoughts, wished people would, and I was very proud of myself. Until he felt like this was a problem. We disagreed, so I had to remind him what vows are for.
I didn't say sell me. I said give me.
Anyway, I went to hang out with the girls, get back to the boss me we all know and love, question myself. Then I got into some musical endeavors. I had a little trouble finding my niche, but the fast life got boring, so okay, so what next? It's going through the motions, just being there, but over it. Insert baby daddy. I was cynical, but I went for it. Why not? Yeah, then I regretted it. Started my natural hair and nail journey. Now I'm just out here trying to avoid poverty, giving advice, saving money, devoting my time to being black, elevating my career, missing my bestie, eating right now. Arguing with certain chicks, trying to make this lady happy so I can glow again. To be continued. Welcome everybody who had a chance to stop through. Today we are interviewing Mr. Obsidian Mumia Ali. Right? Did I say it right?
Actually, it's the other way around. Mumia Obsidian Ali. The Obsidian's in
the Okay. Well, we always say Obsidian, so I'm glad you corrected me. I want everybody to have the right pronunciation. So, Mr. Obsidian, I thought we would come together to talk a little bit about your book. I did purchase it, and I was able to read it. It just took me a while because, I wanted to sit and reflect on a few of the chapters after I read them. And I must say that this was, I did thoroughly enjoy reading this book.
Thank you. It's a lot to read, huh?
Yeah, yes, it really is. But I will say this, in my opinion, it was very eloquent, it was thorough, and there were smooth transitions. The book has a lot of energy, it's provocative. So you're definitely going to feel some type of way about it. And later on, before we open up the panel, I want to talk about the Amazon reviews because I did look at that.
Yeah, I had a really interesting experience with one Amazon reviewer in particular who seems to have taken their review down. But I had a really interesting, whole interesting experience. It's kind of trite to say that I learned a lot. You know, you hear when I studied all this with writing the book, I went and because I've never wrote a book before, so I went back and looked at the interviews of other authors across, genres and so forth. And one consistent theme I would run across is every time they're being interviewed, they would say words to the effect of "I learned a lot," and I understand why they say that because that's been true for me now that I'm on the other side of writing the book. It's been a very eye opening and instructive, and in some cases humbling experience.
Yeah, and I will say this if this is your first book, I definitely can see why it took a while, right? This is a lot. I can only imagine, as a person who is contemplating writing a book of my own. I've also interviewed other Black male authors as well, so I can say that this looks like a lot was taken off your chest and off your mind. So if this all was inside of your head, and this is what you have been, carrying around all of this time before you actually wrote the book and put it into writing. Let me ask you: did you feel relieved when you completed it?
Yeah, yeah, I did. It took me about 7 months to write,
Mm-hmm.
and it all how it all got started was it was a series of columns that I wrote for negromanosphere.com, and I did
Right.
it like on purpose. The book started out in serialized form, and that's a tradition that hails back to the time of Dickens. Many of his Great Expectations and stuff like that started out as a serialized thing, so it would appear chapter by chapter, so to speak, in a periodical publication, a magazine. So I drew inspiration from that and did the book that way, so that people could see what I was writing in real time and make adjustments to it as I needed to for the final draft. So that was kind of part of the structure of the book. So it took me about 7 months to put it all together.
Yeah, and I will say it is very detailed. You know exactly what you're getting in the book. I will say I enjoyed reading it. Let me ask: do you have any additional work that we can expect? Are you working on anything else to come out?
Yeah, I have a slate of books that I'm currently working on. They're all in various stages of production. There will be, but the reason why the book was so big is because I had no idea if I was ever going to have another crack at this thing. So my thinking was, you don't know when you're going to get back in, so leave it all on the floor here, and for whatever reason, there's nothing else. You got that, but but the book wasn't even finished before people started questioning whether there was going to be a volume 2 and stuff like that. So I'm I've got plans to put in place a whole trilogy for the Book of Obsidian. So there'll be a volume 2 and a volume 3. I'm also working on a book for the ladies.
I was gonna.
It's going to be my second book. Um, this time focusing on the ladies, and then I'm also working on a book about heightism and dating. So I decided to work on that, and I got about 3 or 4 other book ideas in my head. So the 2020s will be a very my pen will runneth over in the 2020s.
So the 2020s is the decade of Obsidian. I was going to ask if you were going to write any books with advice to women, because I remember when I first discovered your channel in 2019. I will admit I was one of the women that came over there just to say outlandish things so that you could go in and go off. I had a different channel name back then, an old channel that I don't use anymore. Once I decided to get serious and actually do a YouTube channel, then I made this one. So
Yeah.
your reactions to things are very like, people like that. People do enjoy your reactions, I think.
Yeah. Some people had speculated whether Black women would be interested in this book of mine. And that was a question that I found kind of intriguing myself because, I have a reputation of being somewhat of a shock jock type. There's a shock
Yeah.
jock in what it is that I do. So, and some people would consider me to be somewhat hostile to women, so to black women. So there was an interesting question as to whether or not women would read the book. As it turns out, the answer is yeah. Quite a few black women are interested in reading the book, even though the book is directed at black men. But as it turns out, quite a few black women are interested in reading the book. So very, very interested. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
I think it's kind of like what's the Steve Harvey book, right? Where when he first put it out, he was talking to women, but men read the book so that they could know what women were about to start doing. So
Yeah.
I do think that that's kind of what's happening here, is that the book was geared towards men, but women read it so that they can kind of understand what men are getting ready to start believing and doing.
Right. Yeah. And so it wasn't long before people started asking whether or not there was going to be a book for women. And as it turned out, I had plans, like loose plans for that. But as more people started asking, I said, yeah, I guess I will have something to do about it. So write about it. So yeah, that's going to be the next one. It'll be very interesting to see how that turns out too.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm gonna read it. I want to know. I want to know what your advice would be.
Yeah, because it's a very interesting landscape now in about to be summer 2021. Very different place than where I started out in the summer 2019. Very different landscape, and so it's going to be very interesting to see how it all turns out.
Okay, yeah, while we're on the subject, so in 2019, your message was a little different, and I know that you have gone, I don't expect you to have to relive all of the criticism you've gotten for it, but I do notice that the message is a little bit different today in the almost the summer of 2021. So
Uh,
what do you think,
also,
why do you
how do
think you
you, how
decided
do
to
you,
do something different?
how do you see it being different?
Well, because in 2019, when I first got there, my impression was that you were telling men that you're fed up with women's behavior and that they need to put their foot down and don't stand for it anymore, right? That's the message I got. So is
Okay.
that accurate for 2019?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
Some.
Okay. Well, so for me, that's what I thought the message was, and then now the message is kind of like, well, men, you do need to be a little bit nicer. You do need to be, more productive. You need to have something to offer to women, and then maybe they'll behave themselves.
Well, see, here's the thing with that. The book itself really focuses on, toward the end, because I knew this would kind of possibly happen. So toward the end of the Book of Obsidian, I was inspired by the late great notorious B.I.G. He had a song way back called the 10 Crack Commandments, right? So I wrote a section at the end of the Book of Obsidian called the 10 Obsidian Commandments. And one of the things that I talk about in the 10 Obsidian Commandments is that, you have to focus on doing your part.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, do. I noticed there's a lot of discussion in my neck of the woods about what black women are or are not doing, and a lot of the discussion is legitimate. But there's also something to be said for you having to do what you need to do, and there's a caveat to that as well that I tried to convey in the final chapter of the Book of Obsidian, is that you can do everything right and still lose.
Mm-hmm.
Happens all the time, as a matter of fact. And that's an unfortunate but not so pretty fact of life. And that's something that a lot of men are going to have to make their peace with. And that's something that it's something that, yeah, a lot of guys are going to have to make peace with. You're going to have to do your part. And there are going to be times when you do your part and you do everything right, and still, insofar as women are concerned, still, wind up, coming up short, so to speak. And you're going to have to be
So,
okay.
so essentially, it sounds like you're saying this is not different. It's not a change. It's a continuation of your previous stance. This is the part that you weren't saying yet, and now you're saying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Cause it's hard to, being somebody who's both writing and on air personality at the same time, it's a very delicate tightrope to walk, and they're two very different animals. So it's hard to convey, even if I'm on the air 3 or 4 hours a day. It's still hard to convey everything that I want to convey that I can in a 400 plus page book. So.
Right. Well, and okay, so while we're on the subject, what other media ventures do you have? Because I know you have your YouTube channel back. Are you still on Mixler? Are you thinking of doing like branching out to any other types of media?
Yeah, I'm simulcasting on Mixler. I'm playing around with some things with that. But yeah, I'm back on YouTube, and I consider myself like starting over. After I came back in the fall of last year, I consider myself just starting over again. So, with just the gift of like 10,000 plus subscribers, I was gifted that. So I consider myself starting over again and learning, the social media landscape, and I'm still learning. And so I consider myself starting over again. Every 5 years, you should try to reinvent yourself. And the first 5 years of this project for me was a completely different mission than it is right now. Back then, I didn't care anything about social media. I didn't give a crap about it. My thing was, getting my message out and making the case for, the black manosphere, black male media in that sense. But I'm in a different space now, and it is about learning social media and how it's supposed to be used and how it's meant to be used and how I can best use it to do what it is I want to do.
Okay. Okay. So you know what? Speaking of, because you mentioned writing for the Negro Manosphere, and I do remember that was something that was very regular. It was a real thing, and I actually very proud of you guys for doing something like that for Black people.
Thank you.
So I did want to say, does that factor into how you got to that point? Because I did want to just ask specifically. I know we touched on it a little bit beforehand. I want to ask specifically. What sparked the thought to go ahead and put this into a book? How did you transition from media personality to author?
2 words: Derek Jackson.
I noticed you thanked him in your book.
Yeah, he's in the acknowledgments, and it's a kind of wink, in a way, because I am a smart ass.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I had learned about him back in 2016, and I was just starting out, and I had started out in the summer of 2015. So I had been around for barely a year before I heard about this guy. A number of listeners were telling me about who he was, so I went and checked him out, and we had a brief exchange that wasn't very, very friendly, and that kind of set me off on a tear about him. And a lovely lady that just came along, she's a newcomer to YouTube, Shay Charday. She had spent some time listening to my content, and she said one of the things I noticed about him, he's one of he's one of the earliest critics of Jackson, and not only one of the earliest, but one of the most consistent critics of Jackson. And he's got a long track record of critiquing him, which by now, and at the time she did this, she had made her remarks at the same time that Jackson's own hypocrisy and adultery and infidelity, and mendacity and all the rest of it had become a matter of global awareness and discussion. And she said, he had been proven to be right all along,
Mm-hmm.
and it come to find this. So I went back, when I heard the sister say that, and I had never heard of her before, and I was like, wow. So it caused me to go back into my archive to find out, just how many videos and podcasts that I do on this guy. Come to find out, I did close to 70.
It's a lot, Obsidian, don't you think?
Yeah. So and so at one point this is in 2019, so 3 years would pass. So I said to myself, well, maybe I'm going about this all wrong. Maybe I'm not doing this right. Maybe what I need to do is see if I can get a chance to observe this guy in real time, because maybe I've misconstrued something. So as it turned out, he was doing a tour with some other Black love experts, new wave Black work.
Oh,
Black
I remember that. You went to one of their events to see, and then you came back and talked about what. Well, from my view, you came back and talked about what Black men need to know about that event.
Yeah. And so I had a chance to observe him up close and personal, because not only did I attend the event itself, but then there was another event. There was like a pre-event, meet and greet with Derek himself, so which I bought into that. So I want to have the chance to actually observe him in real time and see for myself if, what I was saying was true all along, or if I was just dead wrong. And I was prepared to eat a lot of crow, because if he was dead wrong, I would have to go back and report on it. So as it turns out, as the late, Denny Green once said, he is who we thought he was. And there was a point, the whole event had a really surreal tone to it. You had 1,000 Black women in attendance, all from all over the Eastern Seaboard. And different ages too. There were women ranging in age from like 20 through 70 and beyond. There was one woman, elderly woman, that was limping along on a walker. And it was really surreal to witness. And at the point of the Q&A, he's on the dais, so is Stefan Labassiere. Like, out of the 10 questions posed, 9 of them were aimed at Derek, all of them of a sexual nature, thinly veiled. And I'm sitting there, and it's got like a church tent revival type of vibe.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, and I'm sitting there like, okay, this is. And I've been to a lot of different events of that type and book signings and so forth. Black love events of varying stripe over the years. But this was so it's so extreme. I would even go so far as to use the word grotesque. Y'all got to do something about this, man. This is insane. So a little voice, came to me and said, well, why don't you write a book? These guys, how come you don't write a book? Right. And I decided to do that. I said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do just that. And that was May. In July, O'Shea Duke Jackson made a video with LAR Movement. They did a the
Brother Peel.
Right. They did a video together. And the topic was, what it takes to be a great dating coach. And O'Shea was leaning back on his experience of having just about every Black male dating coach worth the name on his website writing for him at Negro Manosphere. So he said, look, this is what it makes to make a great dating coach as far as I am concerned, with the experience of having all these guys writing for me. Number one, it doesn't have anything to do with how many videos you make or what kind of videos you make. It doesn't have anything to do with how many women you get, real or perceived. It has everything to do with what you write. If you're not a good writer, you're not going to be a good dating coach. And he explained why. And I was sitting there, and I said to myself, this gives me exactly what I needed. So after I got finished watching it, I contacted O'Shea and said, do you have any room for a dating coach on the roster? And he said, as it turns out, I do, having Shit Can, Donovan Sharp, and Alan Roger Curry. So I have 2 spaces, as a matter of fact. So I went there and started writing and never looked back. And I planned the book. I said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write the book based on the columns that I write and take them and collect them all into a book. So that's how it all got started. So everything is all Derek Jackson's fault. So for the ladies out there that don't like what it is that I did with this book, all you have to do is direct all your hate mail to,
No, Obsidian. That's not how it worked. Okay, so if Derek Jackson could have sparked the idea, but you chose to put pen to paper.
Yeah.
But I am on your Instagram as well. And so I will say that I do enjoy the style of writing that you have. It's very high energy. I think I said earlier. When you're reading something written by Obsidian, you're going to feel awake and alive, or at least I did. So even I may not agree with what you're talking about, but the way you write it, I will say, it is very structured, and I don't know, it makes you want to tune in. I will say that. So do you feel like that's a skill that you have? Do you feel like that's something that's been helpful to you to be able to draw people in like that?
Yeah. I think the one thing that has been very interesting to me to witness about myself is that for some strange and odd reason, people, especially those who aren't particularly crazy about me, keep coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. You got to know what he's going to say next, So you talk about getting labeled as a shock jock earlier. Well, that's kind of what happens. People have to know what you're going to say next. When something, like I believe that people, when they see current events, they're like, okay, I wonder what Obsidian's going to say about this.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like I said, I'm in a new 5-year cycle, so I'm walking a tightrope between writing and then being on the air, and then when I'm on the air, what I say and how I say it, we have to. I think that the Black manosphere in general has to be a bit more circumspect about what we say and how we say it, and when we say, who we're saying it to, and the party faithful will see that as a kind of capitulation, to Black women, and a kind of selling out to market forces. But I don't see it as either. I see it as one, a maturation. Kind of like life.
Right.
You're kind of given a pass when you're young. When I say young, I'm talking about a little boy. You're kind of given a pass for saying crazy stuff.
Right.
But after a while, that kind of gets old. You start going through your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. I mean, after a while, you got to, kind of attenuate a bit. So that's where I'm at with it. How do I keep doing what I'm doing, but at the same time maturing a little bit, attenuating things a little bit, bringing a bit more light to the heat?
I think the thing that people need to realize about anything that's considered creative, right? Any type of creative work, art and literature, all of those things, is that it's not going to stay the same. Art, like people who appreciate art and they're in that field and they understand it, they don't expect the same thing. They will get bored with you. And if you're still doing the same thing as you were earlier in your career, you will become old news. Okay, so that's the thing that people need to understand is once you put all of the body of work together, once you get to the end. So when Obsidian has written his last and final book, all of it will show the progression. And what it does is when you take all of that body of work and you put it together, it kind of gives the people in the future who might come across it an idea of what it was like here and now.
Yeah, yeah. I never thought of myself as a creative like that, but now listening to you say it, yeah, it's true. Writers are creatives of a very interesting sort. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. Welcome to being right-brained, Obsidian.
Ha, yeah, yeah.
Now, so Queen of the South says, like Tom Likas, and I do want to say, Obsidian does kind of like give a shout out to Tom Likas a lot. So yeah.
He's a kind of patron saint of mine. So yeah, he's definitely a influence. A number of people have been an influence. Tommy Sotomayor, who is has seen better days, in my opinion. But he was an early influence on me. So was Tom Likas, Howard Stern, Rush Limbaugh. A lot of people were in the radio business to one degree or another, were influences on me. I kind of drew from all of them.
Okay, well, and you do give a shout out to a lot of different people, not just only in the acknowledgments, but also throughout some of the chapters, your interactions with them, some of the things that they've talked to you about in certain subjects. So I will say that if you've had interactions with Obsidian, you won't be disappointed when you get the book. He's pretty, I guess I could say, honest, and you do give, recognition.
Yeah, that's just a kind of standard operating procedure when you write is try to get attribution where
Well, it
needed.
should be for life in general. You know, I do think that a lot of people need to just recognize that that is something that show one, you know, it shows gratitude and maturity, right? Under the understanding that you can't do everything on your own. So there was somebody that pitched in at some point, and you're acknowledging that. And it lets people know, like, if they want to follow in your footsteps, not those specific people, but the fact that you do need people. It's like modeling. I think it's leading by example, and it's a good trait to have in general.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, I agree. The as for what the book will, when people read it and see kind of like the, you know, different personalities in and around the Black manosphere, what I wanted to try to convey was a snapshot in time. What I noticed with a lot of dating coach authors, they tend to write in a, I don't want to say completely theoretical, but what I would say is that it's not rooted or grounded in anything happening right now. And I wanted my book to be topical, dealing with themes that are going on as we speak, things that are going on in the now within the last few years or so. So I wanted to try to root it in that, and then kind of give my take on that. That's the reason why I wrote the book the way I did with Negro Manosphere in a serialized column format, because that gave me a chance to look at actual real life events and respond to them.
Okay. Well, and we're gonna talk later because in a after like a few questions down the line, I am gonna talk about the chapter that stood out. There were two chapters that stood out to me. One I agree with, one I disagree with, but you know we'll get to that shortly.
Okay.
So now my question is, so this is okay, just like you just said, that brought up a new question that I didn't already have. That's what I think the difference is between you and other dating coaches, because now that you're considering yourself that, I think one of the things that you stand out with is the fact that you are telling people that you do have to focus on specific experiences. Like your book is divided into two overall portions. There's the macro and then the micro.
Right.
So a lot of other dating coaches want to get men to understand that all women are the same. You just do the same thing and you'll get the same results, and you're pushing against that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The to be brutally frank, and I'm focusing now on the books that are aimed at men. It's a somewhat, you know, new field, because the Black love business has been devoted to Black women, and I talk about how and why in the very first chapter of the book, called The Black Love Machine. But but what I talk about in that chapter as well is that we're going to see in the near future, and I wrote this in 2019, we're going to see in the future that start to change. To what degree is still undetermined, but that we're going to see more Black male dating coaches for Black men, and they're going to be writing their material and stuff like that. So of all the material that I had studied, some of it was good, a lot of it wasn't. And a lot of the critiques that I had of these, now my peers, you know, literary work, was something that I attempted to address in my book. It would be that, you know, style of writing, you know, aim, goal, type of writing, you know, sources, whatever it was that I felt that was lacking. When you look at the Book of Obsidian, it's essentially my response to what I saw was lacking in the extant Black male dating coach for Black male literature. And it was my attempt to try to redress it.
Okay. Well, okay, speaking of current events, right? So now there's a thing, and I know like in my younger years this was not a thing, and I'm sure in your younger years this was definitely not a thing. Of Black women, oh, well, not Black women, of women proposing to men. So I wanted to ask you, what's your take on it, based on, you know, who Obsidian is that we know? right? And we did this yesterday. We talked about it. We had a lot of clips about it yesterday. I did the show for the Record TV, Need Third and Brandon. And so we were bringing that up as one of the current events. So from Obsidian's point of view, what do you think about the future of women proposing to men? They're literally getting on one knee, handing the ring over. The guys like jumping in joy and excitement. So what do you think?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. It's dog, man bites dog. I mean, that's a staple feature of media, and now social media. That's the tail that wags the dog in our world these days. So I don't think much of it. You will always have. I mean, Khadija, the Khadija of Islamic fame, if you will, peace be upon her. She proposed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and that was what 1,500 years ago, something like that. So I mean, that's not.
I did not know that. See, Obsidian has a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, she proposed to him. So I mean, my point being is that it's not something that's completely unheard of, but it is unusual, and it will remain to be so. The vast majority of women don't want to propose to a man, and the majority of men don't want to be proposed to by a woman.
Right.
So
I can say I'm not gonna do it. Like if I think that I would never be down that bad to where I have to do something like that. And I say have to because I just gotta believe men, like you said, they don't want to be proposed to. They want to be the one in charge of that decision. They like the idea of them being the gateway to marriage. And I feel like, I don't want to argue about it. I don't want to be the gateway to marriage. I don't.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what do I think about it? I don't.
Okay. So now you know what? So your book is coming from your point of view. So what if you had to describe your dating experience, right? How would you describe that to us? What was it like for Obsidian dating?
It would be in line with what most black men encounter. Hits, misses, near misses, spectacular failures, some great wins. I mean, it's not something that's extreme. It's very much in the mainstream. I think the problem with black love discourse is that it tends to focus on the extremes too much. Mm-hmm. So you have I mean, if you just listen to, especially now with social media, it's a very easy way to look at all this. We tend to focus on all the extremes, and the middle gets overlooked all the time. So my experiences is more in the middle.
Okay, so nothing outlandishly horrible, nothing outlandishly grand.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and here's my view on that is that I do think we need to be aware of the extremes so that you're not caught off guard, so that you know what to do when you experience them. But I don't think that we should be required or praised for living your life as if the extremes are everything.
Yeah. And that's something that there's a real danger with social media and the Black American body politics, so to speak, is that if we don't have enough moderating voices to kind of keep, an even keel, we run the risk of everything kind of going off the rails into extremes.
Right.
So we have to try to rein in the impulse to, toward, dealing with extremes on either side. We have to try to keep a moderating influence in the middle somehow.
Right. Okay. So this next question, so in real life, my career is a mental health therapist. And so my channel, I tend to focus on Black mental health, the things that is being left out for us, that's specifically for us, that needs to be known in the field itself, right? So I do want to say that, let's see, how can I put this? I don't think it's healthy for people to, remain stuck in the like it's human nature for us to remember the extremes and to understand them, but I don't think it's healthy for us to stay there with them. And so what I normally tell people is whatever the bad experience is, pick a lesson from it. What was the moral? And then just remember that sentence. You don't have to remember the whole thing. You can remember like how it happened, how you fell victim to it, and what you need to do if you ever encounter it going forward. But everything else, the specific details, being able to recall it, throwing it into every conversation, that's the part that I try to get people to move past. Like you mentioned earlier, the maturation, right? You can explain, and I do disagree when everybody says that you're stuck in the past, because you can explain it. You can tell the story. You can use it as material. But if you're not living your life still trapped by that, that experience, meaning now you're avoiding things to not go through that again. If you're not reacting to it as if it's still happening, then I do think you've made your peace with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, now here's the other thing, and since this is like connected somewhat to what we're talking about, so the space in which I work and help to create, I see as in a very interesting crossroads, for various reasons. Two words, Kevin Samuels, and there's a kind of clarion call for us to kind of evolve to the next level. And the response on the part of many of the denizens of the space in which I work and help to create is very interesting to witness. And so I think the rest of this year and moving beyond is going to be is going to be a witness to, what we, and talking about Black men here, do. Do we forge ahead, or do we, cling to the past?
Yeah, I think healthy life is a little bit of both. You remember the past and acknowledge it and give it the respect that it's due, but you don't still live in it, because it is in fact the past. If it were still current, it will be the present.
Yeah.
And you can't you can't predict the future. You can reasonably expect, you can surmise, but you can't predict it. There's always going to be some small thing that you overlook, because you can't know what you don't know until you know it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the two chapters that stood out to me, right? So the first one, the one I agree with, are Black women fun? And I do have to say, I know Black women, I know y'all don't want me to say this, but I do have to say, overall as a whole, we're not. I understand why. Because, life for Black women, a lot of times something isn't funny. It's not fun. It's not funny. It's not a nice thing to go through. But I am saying that we need to be more lighthearted. We need to be more fun. I'm not saying it like so that you can earn the favor of men. I'm saying for you personally, you don't want to be trapped in that type of anger all of the time. And I do think that in order for us to get more fun, we have to kind of, not be so judgmental towards one another for reasonable things, and then the things that aren't reasonable, we talk about it, we explain it, we say what we need to say, and then we move forward.
Right.
So like, what was the thing that stood out that made you say, you know what, Black women are not fun? Now, I will say this, I read the book, so I know what's in the book, but other people may not.
Yeah. So there was so throughout the book, not just what you just wrote there, but throughout the book, I make the case that a lot of Black women. So Black love is often framed in community initiative terms, or in, revolutionary terms. Matter of fact, you can look this up online. You'll see statements and blazing on T-shirts. It's almost like slogans now, that Black love is a revolutionary act, and things of that nature. And all of this harkens back to the civil rights era, 1960s, and fight the power and that sort of thing. And that might have been true back then, that Black love was a revolutionary act. It might have been true that Black love entailed a degree of building, quote unquote. But in today's world, where one of the biggest challenges for Black people is to acknowledge that we live in a very different world than our parents and grandparents. Black love, does and should mean something different. It means something much more intimate, much more personal. And for a lot of black women, black men are seen, or let me put it this way, a certain type of black men, because I go into the book too. I call them non-select guys. They're seen as, kind of, and I did a podcast way back called Black Women Want Community Eunuchs, So a lot of black women kind of see a certain segment of black men as kind of like, community eunuchs and cleanup men. That is to say, these are the guys who should, have to, work through the problems with me. I have these problems. They should, be willing to work through these problems with me. It essentially comes across as work, work, and there's no fun. And then a lot of black women, they give all the fun to a smaller group of guys that I call select fuck boys in the book. And, they don't have to deal with any of the work. They don't have to deal with questions of protection and provision. They don't have to deal with any questions of cleaning up or building up the community. They don't have to deal with questions of mentoring boys. And they just have their fun, and that's that.
So would you agree that women do that because they expect, would you say, why is it not a compliment that the women are saying that the men who can protect and provide, we don't ask the other men to do it because we know they can't. They don't have the resources. Oh, well, that's what they're for, is the fun.
Right. And the problem is, for the guys that have to do all the work, what's the reward? Now, the reward, the reward is often made implicit. So the implicit reward is you're doing it for the greater good, which comes down to, let's face it, black women and their children. And for a long time, right now, as we speak, this kind of dynamic is playing itself out right now. Dr. Boyce Watkins is embroiled in a brutal situation with, some heavy hitters in not just the black manosphere generally, some heavy hitters. O'Shea Duke Jackson, Minister Jap, Black Gnostic Speaks. He's embroiled in a bitter thing exactly over this argument. Dr. Boyce Watkins's argument is, you don't care about the community if you don't care about the kids. Well, the fellas, like, again, Minister Jap, O'Shea Duke Jackson, Black Gnostic Speaks, and others are saying, well, number one, where did those kids come from, and how come you ain't saying it to the people, to the black men who made those kids? And number two, why is it the responsibility of black men who didn't make those kids to come in and love them and love the mama and do the building and build up the community and clean up this and do that and mentor? It's work. And with very little in the way of reward. The reward has already been given to the guy who's not even in the building. So, that's the reason why I said it's not even fun. It's work. You're signing up for a thankless job.
Well, I do believe that it should be balanced. Like as an adult, there are going to be times where you work, but there should be also times, because rest and rewards are a need. That is what I, live by in my career. Rest and rewards are, in fact, a need. You cannot live a decent life. You will actually have all of the problems that come along with chronic stress if you don't ever get to cut loose. The problem is, what do we as Black people consider to be fun? And so I don't like the idea that promiscuity is considered fun. Like that's what you have waited all your childhood to get grown so that you can just do. And then, like you said, then it creates men being able to father children, and they're not going to be in the child's life. So my thing is that I would say the reason why the men who are being able to put themselves in a position to be able to provide and protect should mentor the boys coming up, because do you want the future of Black community to be like you, or do you want it to be like the men that got all of the fun? Eventually, you're not going to exist anymore if the women are doing what you say. If the women are making all the kids with all of the fun boys, then that's and you don't intervene, that's what the future is going to be.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing. I make the case in the Book of Obsidian, and I'll be making this in future books. Like I said, I'm working on one right now for ladies. That's the next book. And if everything goes right, I hope it will drop just in time for cuffing season. So,
nice.
Yeah, if everything goes right, keep my fingers crossed.
See, look, always working, always got a plan.
Yeah. That's not a question that Black men can, or let me put it this way. Let me back up. That's not a question for the 80% of non-select Black men to solve. See, one of the things that black women are going to have to come to grips with here, and I want to give my brother Kevin Samuels a big shout out on this, because he's doing a yeoman's job in making this case on his show. He did this as recently as I think it was Friday night. This is something black women themselves are going to have to solve. Black men, especially the 80% non-select guys, they can't solve this problem for black women. This is something black women are going to have to solve. If they decide to mate with a much smaller group of black men and reproduce with them, they have to be prepared to accept the consequences in all of its permutations. And you know, as you rightly pointed out, and you've only highlighted something I've always argued has always been the case. Black women know what those consequences are. That's the reason why they don't go to those guys for help. You know, I think that it's going to be very difficult for a lot of black women to accept that, you know, it's not the job of non-select black men to clean up black women's, you know, mistakes or fix their or remediate their problems or somehow stand in for, you know, the type of men that they need after having the type of men that they wanted. That's a problem that black women are going to have to fix, if they choose to fix it at all. The non-select guys have a right to make choices for their lives too. You know, black women have a right to determine who they want to be with, but the non-select guys have a right to determine what they want to do with their time too.
That's true. So is it your position that the men who are non-select, well, the men that are select are usually going to be derelict in their responsibilities, and the men who are non-select would, if they were select, would be more responsible? Is that the premise?
Okay. That's exactly and not only is it the premise, what I hope to achieve in the next book is to lay out the empirical evidence that bears that out.
Okay, yeah. See, I want to see what the evidence is, because here's the thing. I don't date women, so I don't know what they do behind closed doors with you guys. What I do know is what I do and what women tell me that they're doing. So, you know, I do listen when you guys say your experience with women. Is just, I think that there are some men who are select and that they are responsible. I don't think that they're, you know, I don't think that it's just as clear cut as that.
Well, let's look at that. So the black love industry has been around in various permutations for the better part of half a century. So we have enough evidence now, you know, just taking somebody like we mentioned earlier, Derrick Jackson. Derrick Jackson is the very fuck boy that black women have been complaining about all along.
And do you see how they fell for that though? So this is what I tell women is, like, I didn't like Derrick Jackson when he came out because I felt like he was pouring it on way too thick. Like, I felt like he was doing too much. We don't need all of that, you know? So I was kind of already suspicious. You know, he protests too much, right? So when he did turn out to be the same type of man he tells women to stay away from, his wife is not doing a good service to his previous content by staying with him. But, you know, now he's trying to rebrand it as, oh, my wife is sticking with me. She's a good woman. Okay, well, then if she's a good woman, she deserves a better man. So well, I don't know. I've never been a fan of Derrick Jackson, to be honest.
Well, okay. So you just said it yourself. She deserves a better man. Again, that's not something that black men can resolve. That's going to have to be something black women resolve on their own. And, you know, the great thing about the period that we're in right now, see, it used to be a time in black American life where the black love discourse was not only kind of gatekept by, or gatekept, I guess you could say, by black women themselves in the form of their surrogates and advocates and spokesmen and women. But this was prior to the internet age, and to put an even finer point on it, the social media age. And so it always stayed in the realm of he said, she said, with black women having the upper hand. In other words, black men could make their case, could plead their case, but it would be, pretty much just a formality because, black women were going to come out on top in the public relations war or the public relations battle, so to speak. A lot has changed since then. And in the black manosphere, of which I helped to create, is a big factor. Black women no longer, and they're what I refer to as black vagina vision media, no longer no longer has the stranglehold on the narrative. And you got sharp, talented guys who are coming forward now with, unearthing empirical data. They're funny, they're interesting, they're charming, they're creative, they're persuasive, and they're making their own case in the public square on the other side. And so a real question for a lot of black women, and then that's not even including people like Jackson himself, essentially self-emulating, in the public square, kind of set his own self on fire. So it really brings a question now. A lot of this is in the driver's seat of the ladies. I mean, the problems that you're complaining about in the black love industry are really, you're complaining about the guys that you're attracted to and have often thrown your lot in with. And your solution is that you want the guys that you're not attracted to straighten out the guys that you are attracted to. And that's just not good. That worked in the past. That's the reason why I brought up Dr. Boyce Watkins. He is a throwback to the 60s and 70s. He's born in 1971. So in a very real sense, he's kind of a throwback to that civil rights, black power, black exploitation era. Okay. The race man. He's a throwback to that. And right now, as that
was happening during his formative years. So that's going to be a part of it, the foundation of his personality. So hopefully people who are watching him are going to understand that. So that's a good point.
Yeah. And right now, as we speak, O'Shea Duke Jackson, Minister Jap, Black Gnostic Speaks, and Kevin Samuels. And pretty soon yours truly, because I have some words on that. Now I'll talk about that on my own life. The point being is that major movers and shakers in the black manosphere are saying, no, we're not going to do that anymore. This is a problem that black women have to solve. And the problem is this. You are now free to determine who, when, and under what circumstances you mate. But with that choice comes consequences. With those rights come responsibilities. And it's not the job, and it's not the job of the community, which we really mean the large majority of black men you're not sexually attracted to fix the problems you created with the small group of black men you are sexually attracted to. It's not their job to fix. You have to decide if it means that much to you to be with those men, then you're going to have to figure out how you're going to solve the problems that are inherent in dealing with those men. Because if Derek Jackson has proved anything to us right now in late May 2021, is that he brings at least as many problems as he does pluses.
Now, even more, because what happens is in the beginning, he starts out very sweet, making all of these grand gestures in front of everybody, basically, putting you up on a pedestal just to kick you off of it later. So he now makes it, when he does all of that, he puts you in the public eye. And then when he messes up, it is a huge deal because the public is never going to let his wife forget about it. She doesn't have a regular marriage where, you just stop talking about it and then people just get over it and they move on. Everybody that ever meets her that's a new person is going to bring this up.
Yeah. So,
and I did highlight this comment because I wanted to address it. Panther God. I didn't say it was a compliment to be a cleanup man. What I said is it's a compliment to be seen as capable. Okay. Because the men that we're speaking of, they're not capable. That's what the compliment is. You have additional skills and abilities. Second of all, I didn't laugh at Obsidian's or anybody's sexual needs. I laughed at the way Obsidian says things. If you watch his content, he has a way with words, and it's it's loud, it's in your face. So I laugh when that happens because I know what that does to other people. It stirs up emotion and stuff. So some of the things that Obsidian says, I know is getting ready to cause a ruckus. So no, non-player black men are not seen as complete jokes, at least not on this channel. Okay, this is a safe space for men who are not players, and I do tell women that is a good thing. It's a life with less drama. But if you are a person that likes drama, then you don't get to come over here and complain about what you get. So that's exactly the opposite of what's going on over here, Panther God.
I would like to pick up on a bit on what the brother said, though, because he does make a point, even with your clarification notwithstanding. He does make a point. And I'm not talking about you personally, right. But in the larger discourse, and again, you got Dr. Boyce Watkins now in the mix on this. It is, at the very least, cold comfort to hear black women, I'm not talking about you, to hear black women say, yes, the guys who are competent did, that's a compliment. Well, how complimentary could it be when you mated and reproduced with the worst of us? Mm-hmm. How complimentary can it be?
No, I get that. That's, I do believe that a certain subset of men should just not be interacted with. They should have no access to women. They should not have any children to carry on the same, as you put it, fuckboy type of legacy. I do believe that. So I get it. It's not a whole lot of comfort. It's basically a statement of what is. It's recognizing that the choices that you thought were so fun in your early 20s are not going to yield you the type of fruit that you imagined it would by your late 40s. So I do understand where men are coming from. I get that. And I do talk to women about the fact that this is who you chose to be with, because I don't want to hear complaining out of men or women, to be honest with you. I don't.
Yeah. So what I tried to do in the first book is kind of make the case that what's known in black manosphere circles as the 80-20 rule is a real thing. As a matter of fact, this came after the publication of the book. I finally got scientific evidence to prove and bear out that the 80-20 rule is indeed a scientific fact. And what I hope to do in the next book for the ladies is kind of expound on not only the science of the 80-20 rule, but how it's played itself out in contemporary Black American life and what the implications of that will mean going forward for the ladies. The book that I'm going to be writing for the ladies next is going to be something that, I guess in a sense, it'll be kind of like a feminine version of the Book of Obsidian. Try to be a groundbreaking text, doing something that none of the other Black love experts for Black women have done, and which is to tell the truth.
Because that doesn't get the money. That's the point I just remembered that I was making with Derrick Jackson, right? Is that the women fell for what he was selling because he creates, like you mentioned, a tent revival type of vibe. He's talking about self-love and feeling elevated, and it is very attractive. People do want to feel uplifted. So it's like inspirational, but then all of a sudden when you peek behind it, you see, oh, he's just like the men that he was describing, so that's how women fail for that. And I want women to not be so readily, susceptible and waiting for somebody else to uplift you. So if you truly believe in self-love, which I don't think Derrick Jackson is pushing correctly, I think he is giving a self-serving version of it, right? I think that if Black women understood what self-love actually is, they won't need that type of revival feeling from outside of them. They will be able to create that in their own life before they start adding people in. And that goes back to women being fun, drawing people in. You can have a balance. You can know how to take care of business, but rest and rewards are a need. So once you've taken care of business, or either you take a break so that you don't get burnt out and then become bitter. So self-love would be recognizing when you've done enough work and it's now time for you, your brain, your body says it's time for a break, and then you know how to cheer yourself up. That is you understanding and knowing coping skills. Life is always going to have negative stuff in it. You can't wait until Derek Jackson hosts an event where he's sitting there telling you all of you are beautiful. Why can't you tell yourself that?
Well, one thing that I've learned in that experience, there's an old saying in the world of con men, right? A mark can only be a mark if they want to be. A con man can't pull one over on you unless you want to be. You wanted somebody to be pull one over on you. A lot of black women. What I learned from that whole experience is that a lot of black women want to be lied to. That the truth is just too much for them to bear. They want to be lied to. They want to be.
See, I think it's more of acceptance.
Pardon?
Oh, I was saying, I think it's more of acceptance. They don't necessarily want to be lied to. They are willing to accept what they already are ready to hear. It doesn't matter. Like the truth, what the truth actually is, if you're grounded in reality, what the truth actually is, a lot of women don't want to hear that. So right. They want the opposite to be true. They want what the men are selling them to be true, and it's just not. They're not willing to accept the fact that that's just not the world we live in.
Right. So yeah, the next project is going to be very interesting. I'm very much like I like half the book written already, kind of like rough note. And so I did it. The intervening months between now and Labor Day, I guess, will see me, fleshing everything out and adding and subtracting and editing and proofreading, stuff like that. It's going to be very interesting. But this book is an unintentional springboard into the next one, and it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So what is it that you didn't like?
Right. Well, I'm not saying didn't like. I liked the book. I disagreed with the premise of the chapter that says sex is on the menu. And, Obsidian, remembering, I actually came on your panel, I think, discussing this one day, where you first came out with the hand of the red card business and the itinerary and all of that. So
I'm glad you said that. So let's continue with the motif of Jackson, which I start off the book, kind of doing a wink nod thank to him. So I had a research assistant, right?
Oh yeah.
So I had a research assistant, and the reason why I had a research assistant was because I have enough emotional intelligence to know that if you show up at an event where it's essentially a black women's event, and you show up by yourself as a guy, you're going to look weird at the very least, if not rainbow, so to speak.
Or either women are going to think you came there to pick up women in their vulnerability.
Yeah. So what I needed was some plausible deniability. So I got me a research assistant to kind of help me out with that. But also because I know enough about women to know that there are things that women see that I, as a man, may not see, be that intentional or otherwise. So I needed another set of eyes and ears that were female that could pick up on things that I did not. And sure enough, there were quite a few things that my research assistant picked up on that completely flew right past me.
Hold on one second, Obsidian. I don't mean to interrupt, but I do have to drive home this point. So when I tell men that is one of the things that women do, that's one of the things that we can be helpful with, that you just said it, So just so y'all know, I'm not just pulling that out the sky. Women have a purpose. That's what we do. We're quiet, we're watching, and then we do tell men things. All these people that want women to just be silent, that's not going to ever happen. And it's also not advantageous for you. But go ahead, Obsidian.
So, this is something that I would not have seen for a very simple reason I'm about to explain. So after the event was over and everybody's kind of, buying up all their merch at all these guys' tables and, repairing to the ladies' room to powder their nose, my research assistant did the same. Went to the ladies' room to powder her nose. And the ladies' room is packed. And the ladies, it sounded like the proverbial high school guy's locker room. Okay. All about talk about what they want to do, to what Derek could get and how he could get it. And I would do this to them, do that, this, that, the other. And it almost made my research assistant, at turns blush and retch listening to Black women. The median age we estimated was about 35 or so, saying these things at an event that was predicated on mom and apple pie, self-love, family, relationship, marriage. They wouldn't talk about none of that in the ladies' room. They let it all hang out. Now, what does this have to do with your disagreement with my position in the Book of Obsidian in the chapter Sex is on the Menu? What does that have to do with?
I know what it has to do with it. Right. Is basically, if women can do that, then why would they ever go out with a man they know they don't want to do those things with, and then just use them for food?
Wow, how'd you figure that out already?
I was on that panel, and then two, I don't agree with dinner whoring, as you call it. I don't like that. I feel like I should never have to be down that bad to I have to now go out with somebody I don't want to be around just for food. That sounds a little desperate. It sounds a lot poor, in my opinion. I don't want to come off as classes, but I just don't want to do that.
So we are both agreeing that the anecdote that I relayed to you from 2 years ago, my research assistant, it wasn't me, my research assistant in the ladies' room, because I couldn't go in there. She did. Right. And she wasn't intending, that was not intentional on either of our part. That was incidental. But it shed a huge light on what we're talking about 2 years later. So we both agree, women know who's who. We both agree on that. Women know who they want to get it and who they don't want to get it. And you don't need to do no whining and dining to do it. As a matter of fact, if we're going to use Derek as a kind of stand-in for this, they were paying him for the privilege, if anything, because they had to pay to come to his event. And they had to pay to buy his books. And they had to pay to buy his card games. And they had to pay to get his t-shirts, if anything. So the point of the chapter is to get Black women to shit or get off the pot, so to speak. If you're really interested in me like that, you sign right here and we can do what we do. The fact that so many Black women balked at the very idea is in itself telling, because it tells me that a lot of Black women really ain't interested in dudes like that, which means to me what they're interested in is, and I have to give him his due, Alan Roger Curry said it best, dangling the possibility of sex in order to get what they want from guys. And matter of fact, there are Black women online over the past few years who have created the term for it called finessing.
Yeah, see, I don't like all of that. I don't like the finessing and all of that. And the reason I don't is because it's me having to do something I don't want to do just to get something. Is there another way that I could get it? I cringe at the idea of spending time with somebody I don't actually like. So I'm saying that not to be, and I don't want to make it sound like, every time I say this disclaimer, I don't want to make it sound like men they're negligible, like they don't count, right? But I'm telling women that you got to feel better about you. I don't want to have to be in a predicament to where I'm sleeping with somebody just because I wanted a meal that day. And I know that the women, they're not really down that bad, but just think about it. If you're not in need of it, so then why are you doing it?
I think it's pretty obvious why a lot of Black women are doing it.
For free food, but that's not enough. I'm sorry. That's not enough to make me want to show up somewhere. And then think about, you have to sit through, that's 2 hours of sitting through this meal with somebody you don't like just to get food. That's a miserable time. That doesn't sound like it's fun.
Quite a few Black women do it though.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is the reason why I tell women why that's not cute to do. That's 2 hours where you're sitting with somebody that you aren't listening to. You're not enjoying being there. Well, you could, if that's the case, then just go out with one of your friends. And we as women, we could laugh and gag and have a good time, and we could cheer you up or whatever it is. But, you know, and then like if you don't have it, then maybe we might pay for it, you know, as our friend. You don't have to go sit with some guy for 2 hours that you don't like, because then now that's 2 hours where you're doing something unpleasant when you could be doing something pleasant.
Well, what I would say is this, that your statement or your position is a very noble one. In the real time, that's not how it tends to play itself out.
No, I know. I'm saying this is what I try to tell people. So I know it's not happening in real life. Otherwise, I wouldn't need to say it.
Yeah. And so this state of affairs won't stop until the non-select guys put a stop to it. And that's the reason why I wrote what I wrote in the book. By the way, that chapter was inspired by Me Too, or at least an incident that occurred during the Me Too era. Aziz Ansari, who, if the story is to be believed, I don't think that she was that dude. I don't think that in the eyes of the woman that he was with that night, he was that guy. Women don't do that to those guys. The guy that they want to be with and all that, you don't have to worry about all that. Y'all do what y'all do, and that's that. So clearly, he wasn't that guy. Yeah. And he could have circumvented all of that by doing what I was talking about, because she would have balked at it. That tells you she don't dig you like that, and you move on. So
okay, hold on, Obsidian, because you know non-select guys you're not putting a stop to dinner whoring by making them sleep with you after the dinner. They're still going to do it. They're just going to sleep with you afterwards.
Right. So the idea is not to get the women to get them to do it. It's to get rid of the women who never wanted to do it in the first place.
Okay, yeah, because I know you guys, you know, y'all have like these topics about women who are using you, and it's okay as long as they sleep with you afterwards. So they're not. You're okay with dinner whoring as long as they actually put in the work for the whoring afterwards.
Right. The problem is, and it is a kind of misnomer, dinner whoring, because it goes to what you're saying. So it's a kind of misnomer, to be fair. But the real point is, these are women that are giving the signals and the signs that they're going to do something, but as soon as they get a chance, they're going to balk. They're going to bolt and run. So you want to get rid of those people, and the way you get rid of them is to let it be known. Hey, listen, you sign in. In our society of contract law and stuff like that, people are really reluctant to sign on the dotted line if they know they have to live up to it.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings me to as two things that made me disagree with that chapter. One, okay, so it's not going to affect. But like, here's the thing with dinner whoring, right? Other men, I know you feel like it's a bad thing, but other men don't. And what I mean by that, I'm not talking about men who are just so excited and happy to go out on a date that they're willing to pay for it and trick on a first date, all of that. What I'm saying is the next man that she meets isn't going to care, because one of the things that you said was retribution for the man. If she does not comply, okay, so let me just lay this out. You feel like giving the woman an itinerary for your first date and it ending with sex, like you literally spell that out at the bottom of the itinerary, that if she doesn't do it, that this is a woman that can't be trusted. And so you want to develop like a way for other men to know, hey, listen, she will lie to you and tell you, that she's going to sleep with you at the end of the date and then won't. But like you said, there are men that can get it. And the dating is just, the dinner is just a formality. So other men are always going to want to see themselves as, oh, well, she'll give it to me. I'm taking her out on a date because I want to be able to eat steak today. So this wasn't just to get the box. I'm the guy that she wants to sleep with anyway. So I'm not really losing anything. I'm not being used. So we're different. They're going to separate themselves from you.
Right. Well, in all things in life, there are penalties for failure to deliver on promised goods and services. That's true everywhere in life. And it's certainly true with women. I mean, if you're a bad date with a woman, they're going to talk about you. And in Black America, in today's world, if you're a bad date, and let's just get right to it, if you're bad in bed, you will get a bad dick report. People will make sure that they know about it. Black women will put you all on blast. I'm only doing what Black women themselves have done. I want to, this will be a project for next year, I guess. But I am calling for a creation of a dinner whore registry. And the women that, abscond, the women that that balk, the women that that default and defraud, will make up, as Kevin Samuels uses the Young Guns clip, Emilio Estevez, Billy the Kid, I'll make you famous.
So basically, like Match.com in reverse, like mismatch.com. Don't date this woman.
Yeah, it's kind of like, these are the women to avoid. Avoid this type of woman. She's not worth your time or your consideration, and certainly not worth your money.
But yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, is that the men who see her on that list are just going to separate themselves from you. They're just going to say, okay, well, I'm not like y'all. She's not going to do that to me.
Buyer beware. That and I'm glad you brought that up, because this is something that will be in the future book of Obsidian. I didn't have time to put it in this one, because I did want to cover it, but I didn't have time to. And I'm glad that that I had a chance to revisit the piece. Is that because thanks to Steve Harvey 11 years ago, it's time that non-select brothers accept the truth, which is the majority of the black women that you are digging ain't digging you, man. That it's time to accept that and let go and move on. Move on to what? Maybe you move on to a life alone. That is a possibility. I'm not saying it's a certainty, but it is a possibility that you can't allow yourself to not to consider. Maybe you don't get a mate, and that's just the way life works.
See, Obsidian, I will say you're meaner to men than I am, because I don't want any man to feel like that. I honestly don't. I feel like
it's understandable why you wouldn't, because I don't want you to take this the wrong way. You are a woman, and
I don't take that the wrong way. I am.
And women don't look at life in these terms, but as men, you have to look at the harsh realities and ugly realities of life. And one of the, only 40%. Let me think. If my numbers are right, I think only 40% of men down throughout human evolutionary history made it.
I get that, and I just feel like we've adapted, though. Like I don't think that any man have to be alone. I'm not saying like I want to pair them. I just don't want them to go without.
The majority of men didn't. Now, I'm not saying that because that's the way it was, that's the way it has to be. What I'm saying is that part of life as a man is to accept life on its own terms. You're not going to always get what you want, even if you did everything right. Even if you did everything right, a big part of the churn that's going on in the black manosphere and beyond is that a lot of brothers are rightly miffed at the idea that the knuckleheads and the bad guys keep winning. And so long as that's the choice of the ladies, that will largely continue to be true.
But Obsidian, you're doing it the same thing to women, because now the hoes are winning. The women that are willing to go out on one date with you and then bust it open at the end of it, now they're winning. Now they're getting all the attention and the accolades. They're not getting their reputations tarnished. That's what women are gonna feel the same way.
How is anybody getting their reputation tarnished by agreeing to an evening with a man in which sex is part of the activities, and she has agreed, and they do that? Whose reputation is tarnished now?
Okay, so this brings me to my second point, right? So will there be a system in check to make sure that the man didn't do something else disrespectful on the date, to where she was going to give him some, but then he said something crazy, and then she was like, you know what, I can't do it.
Absolutely, it's called the internet. Women already do it. I'll give you an example: dick pics.
I hate. Are you going to speak out against that? Are you going to tell men to stop doing that?
There are I don't have to for this reason. There are entire websites, blogs, Tumblrs, you name it. I would imagine, I have to believe, Instagram channels and the like, that have women, in this case black, putting men on blast for showing their dick to them. And you want to know something? I got no problem with it. I don't
Right.
I don't think that kind of behavior is appropriate. I mean, if the woman wants to see your dick that bad, she will. That's my position on it. If a woman wants to see what you're working with that bad, she knows exactly what to do to make that happen. So my thinking is, if you're a guy and you don't know how to conduct yourself and behaviors, especially with black women, the way they're connected on social media, the chances are pretty high you're going to be put on blast. So that's a question that's easily addressed. Easily.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure you thought of everything. So now the last question before we open up the panel. So if you could choose what your readers do with the information that they get in this book, what are you hoping that this book does?
What do I hope that this book does? What I hope that this book does is, because like you said, it's divided in two parts. So what I hope the book does is, one, get black men, and now an increasing number of black women, to think long and hard about the things we're talking about today in a 21st century black American dating and mating landscape. And two, to talk directly to the non-select guys that because life, or the arrows and slings of fate, or whatever you want to call it, has kind of dealt a shitty hand, does not give you an excuse to quit. You still have a job to do. And I think that's the two biggest takeaways I would like people to take away from the book.
Okay. So now the reason why I asked that last question is because every action has like a chain reaction afterwards. So the fact that you put this book out now, our 2021 now is changed. It's not going to be the same. Before it was 2021, before Obsidian's book, and now it's 2021 after Obsidian's book. And I say that like that happens for all of us in all of our lives. You know, once there's an action that happens, that path, you're now down that path. You know, it's a whole philosophy, you know, thought process that I go through from time to time. So that's why I wanted to know, like, what do you hope that the chain reaction is? And I do think that black dating does need an overhaul. I do think that we need to reconsider some of the things that we do. And I really do hope that people are, if they read the book, that they understand that it's serious. It's not Obsidian trolling. This is really a real book. Because I initially, when I realized you were writing a book, I thought you were writing it to troll like you do on your channel. But no, it really is something that I think that men who are non-select, that if they read this book, they would get some hope. I really do.
Yeah. So it'll be very interesting to see how it all plays itself out in times to come. It'll be very interesting to see. I'm interested in seeing how it will play itself out in times to come. I have no idea. I just don't know. I have no idea.
Okay, so I did drop the link in the chat if anybody wants to come up. Obsidian is open to doing a panel today. You know, I did ask him if he had enough time, and he is willing. So if there's anybody that has any questions, any comments, hopefully from some people that have actually read the book, if they haven't, you know, then come up and ask questions that I hope you get the answers that will make you go out and purchase the book. I would recommend purchasing it. It was helpful. See, and mine has a autograph in it, so that's why I'm gonna.
You can get the book everywhere on the planet now. It's you can get it from Walmart, Barnes and Noble, Scribd, Books A Million, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can get it in print and in Kindle or Nook ebook format. I think it's on sale at Kobo too, and so it's on sale everywhere. You can also get it directly from my publisher, Book Baby, here in the Delaware Valley. Philly businesses represented right over the bridge in Pensacola, New Jersey.
Excellent. Okay, so Book Baby is you. Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah, that's
I never heard of that. So you have a publishing company?
But no, they have a publishing company. They publish for me. Is Book Baby. But you can also get signed autographed copies directly from me by sending in $35 or more to my Cash App, $ Obsidian Radio, or to my PayPal, www.paypal.me/Obsidian Talk Radio. And don't forget to include your name and address, and I'll send you out a signed autograph copy. So yeah.
Okay. Well, and I do want to thank you for coming up, Obsidian, because I want to make this a channel where we do highlight some of the things that Black people are doing that is helpful, and I do think the book is helpful, right? Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it will start conversations. And I do want to interview female authors. So if you guys know of anybody, or if there is a woman in the chat or watching a replay that has written books, please email me as well, because I do want to do that. This is for all Black people. Speaking of, I did want to mention that it's interesting that Amazon has your book paired with Shahrazad Ali. Did you know that?
Really? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like frequently bought together. It's like,
wow.
So it's you and her book, The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Women. So that's what made me ask if you were going to write a book to Black women.
Yeah. Well, now that you put it up there, yeah. Well, isn't that interesting? Wow. Just when you thought you saw it all, son of a gun.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And I did also want to say, like, so the reviews, out of 30 reviews, it has 4.5 stars. You know. So
yeah. I'm getting a lot of people that are leaving reviews, and if anybody takes the time out to read the book, I really appreciate it if you leave me an honest review. Feedback is very important, so I appreciate it.
Right. And I'm shocked nobody's coming up here to challenge anything. I thought more people would be ready to go off, but I do want to say that I don't have a channel where there's a lot of beef and arguments and stuff. So that doesn't typically happen over here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not well, I just yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I think that it's something that it's a big book, so a lot of people have to sit down and kind of go through it, and I noticed that it takes about a month and a half for people to do that. So I guess people are still reading it, but yeah,
you did get some compliments and some good comments in the chat though. So I do think that people appreciate the fact that you were willing to come over here and answer questions. And I don't know, I asked the questions that I want to know. So I don't know if anybody else had any questions that y'all feel like I didn't ask. This would be the time for you to come up and ask them yourself, or you could at least put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Dane Christopher. I tried. It is mental health, so my hope is that when people come over here, that they are thinking about being better themselves.
Yeah, I'm hoping that people have some interesting questions. But this has been a very good interview in any event. So got a chance to kind of flesh out some things that so far I haven't had a chance to do so. So that's very good. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. I do know like that women, right, might be a little mad at you. So I thought this would be a good reason to have you here on the panel, because not to say that they would come up and get to go off, but if they had any questions, if they had any real, thing that they need to hear or want to know.
Now I'm curious to know why you would think they would be mad.
Well, because, women kind of want you to be nicer, kind of like the advice that you're giving right now. And you do remember, back in the days where the Obsidian channel used to be the place to be. And I think it kind of still is now. I haven't been to the new channel because I haven't really been on YouTube a whole lot. But, there were a lot of women that were like, I can't believe you, Obsidian. That was the overall gist of everybody that came up to disagree. Was, how could you say that? Why would you do this? Hey, Art. So, okay, maybe I shouldn't use the word mad. They would be a little bit, they would disagree.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I would yeah, I could see that. I could see how that works.
Okay. So Dane Christopher says, Obsidian, did you include your B1 experience in the book?
B1 experience? I don't know what that means.
With the B1 channels over here, I didn't see any reference to anything about that, but there was a time where you were heavily in those channels, like just giving your opinion. I will say that you came over there with the same talking points that you had on your channel. So I did get to watch a little bit of the back and forth, and that was classic.
Right.
So I didn't really see any specific references to it, but was that part of the thought process when you were writing the book?
Okay, so the closest I would come, the closest I would come to a B1 experience is the second chapter of the book, which is called The Pro-Black Game. And I discuss the pro-black, as we call it today, the pro-black community, and how it's kind of an extension of the Black love machine. And I didn't have time to go into all the various permutations and personalities. So what I did was I kind of focused on one individual in particular, which is Dr. Umar Johnson, who, interestingly enough, is back in the news these days. So, the book in a lot of ways is, kind of, eerily prescient, because I was writing about this in 2019, and a lot of the individuals that I wrote about wound up being big names in one way or another, 2 years later. So it is kind of scary.
Right. Now, and so that's the only part that I saw that could be closely related to B1. But you did also mention some of the things that both Kevin Samuels and Nicole Michelle experienced when they were dealing with Black women.
Yeah. There's that. Definitely that.
Right. So, I do want to say, like, I do think that if Black women were to listen to me, right? Like, so I have this running joke that I do about I'm running for president in 2024. So, like, the thing is, I would, like, women, we have to be willing to accept joy. And I do think that that's a thing with Black women, is that they're not willing to accept happiness. It doesn't have, like, they're doing all of these things to try to chase happiness. But I truly feel like as a culture, we don't know what is going to make us happy. So they're doing a whole lot of things, and it's not going to make you happy. It's not.
Yeah.
Because you have to recognize it's going to come from within. It's not something you can require or get out of somebody else.
Yeah. That's something I haven't had a chance to really dive into it. I might in this new book, maybe, but I am aware of that type of, I don't know what to call it. I guess you call it living your best life content. I am aware of that. Like, for example, Shonda Rhimes has a kind of, living your best life type of, tell-all book, and is doing very, very well on Amazon. What I would say about that is, and this again is something the non-select guys, because it's not going to be the select guys unless they stand to benefit from it. I'm looking at you, Derek Jackson. The select fuck boys, they're not going to do this unless they stand to make money off it. Non-select guys are going to have to let go of trying to help Black women, save Black women, save them from themselves. We do it in the hopes of showing that we're good guys, worthy of being, mates and stuff like that. And that just doesn't work for the most.
So let me ask you this, Obsidian. So if that's your guide for Black men, right, is acceptance, how do you say that that's different than trying to trap them into sadness? Because it doesn't sound very hopeful. And this is me. Like, I didn't take offense when you said I'm a woman earlier, because that would be the thought process that I have.
Yeah. I think that the difference with my book and the other books, and I guess the better to put a finer point on it, the message isn't a optimistic one in the classic sense of the word. It's more of a cold-eyed look at where we are today, and that's going to be hard for a lot of Black men to look at this thing in a cold-eyed sight kind of way. and to be accepting of where we are, and to move forward based on that. That's going to be very difficult for a lot of us. And but I think that and I'm not and my book doesn't promise any, you know, happy ending, or you know, get the girl of your dreams, or, you know, you getting dimes, or you getting laid, you spinning plates. Doesn't do any of that.
So
It's a very mature book.
So are you saying that part of manhood is not needing like the hope that women need? Like that would be a masculine thing, is for them to be able to accept that life isn't always going to be what you want it to be.
Yeah, a big part of life for all of us, but men, you know, a big part of life for us is that there are going to be a lot of very unpleasant aspects of it that you're going to have to deal with head on. You, well, let's put it this way: you either deal with it or it deals with you. Let's do
That
it
is
that way.
true.
You
And
either
and
deal
I
with it or it deals with you.
and I do have to say, like that whole living your best life thing is subjective. So that's why I'm kind of against that part of the culture, is because you living your best life isn't going to guarantee anybody else that follows along that same path is going to live their best life, you know. And a lot of it that I see when women are talking about living their best life is things that are coming from outside of them. It's not an internal locus of control that they're describing, and that actually has been proven in my field that that is what's going to lead you to being able to feel like you're living your best life. In other words, self-actualization. If it has to come from outside of you, you're not going to feel like you're living your best life. You can say it, but it's not going to be actually true. You're not going to actually feel it and have it radiate within you.
Yeah. So there's a number of people in the chat room that are asking some pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
I was getting ready to holler. I'm going in order. So Ray Alexander typed first. He said, science confirms that the return of investment of marriage is substantial for men. Married men tend to be healthier, wealthier, and live longer than single men. So why would you advocate for lifelong bachelorhood?
I don't advocate for it. I don't advocate for lifelong bachelorhood. What I and I don't make that argument in the Book of Obsidian at all. Um, but your point, Ray, about science and the benefits of marriage for men is very solid. What I would say is that, has that been something that has been studied to any degree in Black America? I'm not aware of any specific studies that focuses on Black America, but I do know this: the Black marital rate is at its all-time lowest ever, at under 30%, projected to drop below 25% for millennials when you isolate millennials. We have no, God knows where it's going to be for Generation Z in Black America. We know that Black women file for divorce more than any other group of women in the country, at somewhere over 80%. So a real question emerges as to what benefits, if any, accrue to Black men in marriage. We know that's the case overall in the country. And let's just be honest here, white. But has that been studied specifically with Black men? I don't know. I don't know. So it's
Okay.
a good question.
So and Ray Alexander also sent me some information that I was going to do. It's actually a question that you posed to Boyce Watkins. What tactical or strategic advantages does his very late marriage to Dr. Alicia bring for him?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't kept up with Dr. Boyce, and so I don't understand all of the ins and outs of his marriage, or why it's even a big thing. You know, I used to watch him, and you know, in the past, but then I just kind of felt like it's things that, like with my career and also with my life experiences and me being a bookworm, you know, it was stuff I already knew, things that I was always trying to get people to understand anyway. So it didn't hold my attention because I already thought certain things. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Obsidian. What were you gonna say?
No, I was going to say that there was a gentleman in the chat room that pointed out a question about a guy named Dane Christopher,
Mm-hmm.
asking what I consider my book to be on the black pill spectrum of philosophy? That's a good question. There's been a lot of questions about, and a lot of discussion about black pills. So you have red pills and blue pills, and you have purple pill. Kristen Carrison came along with the pink pill. So there's this idea of a black pill type of mindset, and I'm not sure what that means. I've heard it, but I haven't heard a concise, definitive explanation of what a black pill is. So it's hard for me to answer that question because I don't understand exactly what a black pill is. So
yeah, well, first of all, there were only 2 pills in the book, and so I think the black pill is just kind of, from what my understanding is just you have let go of all social graces. And so I personally don't think that that's a good thing for society. We are an interconnected species, okay? We're never going to be able to just survive alone on an island by yourself. Your brain will go nuts. You might be able to survive physically, but your mind is going to suffer, okay? So what they're describing when they talk about black pill is a whole lot of doing whatever I want, not caring, is the way I heard it described.
Well, if it's hard to, that sounds like being antisocial.
Yeah.
And if it is, it's hard to reconcile how you can be antisocial and be a gentleman at the same time.
Well, see, and that's the thing. From what I heard with the black pill being described, they don't care about being a gentleman.
So if that's the definition of it, and I don't know,
right.
But if that is indeed part and parcel of the definition of it, then by definition, my book would not be black. I mean, it says right on the cover of the book, it's a manual for the 21st century Black American gentleman. So
yeah, like a black pill. Now, I don't know if I got the answer right. That's just kind of my understanding. Every time somebody's been asked and I heard it, that's kind of what my understanding of it is. So if I'm wrong, just correct me. But yeah, they're not going to care about any of this because they're going to feel like I should be able to just wake up and follow my every whim. And in terms of dating, if a woman wants to be with me, then she's going to need to be able to accept that and get in line with it.
Yeah. So
now there was okay. So who is Tony Gaskin? Because Dane Christopher also said Tony Gaskin would be considered a select black woman saver.
Yeah, he's a black male, or he's a black love expert. He's been around for a long time. He's on YouTube and Facebook and so on. And yeah, he's one of those, select fuck boy types. And he does what he does for pay. This isn't a charity. He does what he does for pay.
Yeah, see, and I think women lose sight of that. These men are in this to make money. They aren't always going to have your best interest at heart. They're literally making money by telling you what you want to hear to increase your willingness to part with your money in order to fund their lifestyle where they could be doing anything because you don't know them personally. So I don't want women to fall for that. I really don't. I want women to know that peace and happiness comes from within you, and you got to make and reconcile with the things in your past that have happened. Don't stay in the misery because you deserve to have fun and have life. So I always try to make sure that if you're around me and you're a woman, you're going to be upbeat, you're going to be happy. What do we need to do? If it's a problem, well, what do we need to do next? So Ray Alexander has another question. He says, Google marriage and men's health, Harvard Health Publishing. Married men are healthier and wealthier. Oh, this is a response to your response earlier.
Yeah. I'm familiar with all the sources he mentioned. I was speaking specifically studies carried out on black marriage and its impacts on black men, one way or the other. I'm not familiar with specific studies of that type.
Okay. All right. Dane Christopher. Yet again, Dane Christopher, you should come up on a panel. I know you haven't been on panels before. Question, Obsidian, would you consider your book on the hopeful side for non-select guys, the wake up, you idiot, accept reality kind of thing?
In a sense, yeah. In a sense, there is a hopeful message in that. Once you're blind, now you see. That's the reason why I put a lot of scholarly sources in the book and a lot of journalistic sources. And
I particularly enjoyed that part. Me being a nerd, I get it. I liked that. Like that to me, I was like, yeah, at least this way, if I, want to know where something came from, I can go look at it.
Yeah. So that, in a sense, yeah, there is a kind of a wake up idiot vibe to some extent. I didn't intend it that way. I wasn't thinking like, but since you asked, yeah, a case could be made for that. Yeah.
Okay. So Viking Paradigm says black pill is just poisoned blue pills, aka they were blue pilled and are mad about the red pill truth. So that's not red pill rage, because okay, first of all, with all of these different terminologies, I really feel like once you here's what I believe, right? So if we create a certain lingo in this subset of people and you start applying that to everything and living your life by that, you become disconnected from the actual reality of people who have no idea that this stuff exists. So that's why I, try not to go down that rabbit hole of understanding all of this lingo, because I'm going to just be talking about and dealing with what's happening in real life.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody else, there's somebody else, had a, interesting question, back to, I believe it's Ray. He said
Okay.
that, yeah, he said his indifference to marriage limiting black men's economic advancement. Married men out earn never married and divorced men. Married men accumulate more wealth faster than single men. What I will say to Ray is this, in addition to my earlier point about my not being aware of any specific studies focusing on black marriage and black men and to what extent they benefit from it. And I'm not saying that they don't, and I'm not saying that such studies don't exist. I'm just saying I'm not aware of it. I will say this. Ray is speaking to a point that I'm giving a lot of thought to already. And that is, most black men want to be in a relationship and or married. And that's something I've noticed the extant dating coaches for black men, pickup artists, etc., don't seem to focus in on it all. And that's a very interesting area of investigation for me in writings to come. Because Ray's his own example of insistence on marriage and stuff like that, and what he sees as my kind of being indifferent to it, is a very deeply problematic thing to a lot of black men, believe it or not. A lot of black men do want to be in a committed relationship. The vast majority of black men don't want to be Mac daddies. They want to have a girlfriend or wife.
I do think that they come up with that ideology and start living that life after feeling like women are never going to cooperate.
Well, but see, that's just it. The problem is there are not many black women who want to be a girlfriend or a wife. So, like I said, the Black American situation is a very unique and at times troubling one. And it's something that needs to be, investigated more fully. And since I don't see anybody else on either side doing it, I decided to do it.
Okay. Well, now I will say, I don't experience you as indifferent to marriage. Do you think that you're indifferent about marriage?
No, I'm not indifferent to it, but I can see, not being a full-throated advocate for it, I can see how others like Ray can see me as indifferent. I can understand it, even though I'm not.
Yeah, no, you speak highly about marriage, but you talk about it since you haven't been. You talk about it from your parents' point of view, and you talk about you having accepted bachelorhood, is what I heard. The way I heard you say it.
Yeah, it was a conscious choice. It was a conscious choice.
Okay, so Viking Paradigm says that would be a good way to put it. Black pill do being guys that never move past the red pill rage. Okay. And then Tesha has a question. From your point of view, why do you feel the coaches don't uplift with pushing men to get married?
Very good question. I think that one thing I learned in writing the Book of Obsidian is just how little data-driven my colleagues are. I try to do, and time will tell if this will happen. What I tried to do with the Book of Obsidian is let the data and the information get out in front of the narrative and me. But what I noticed with my colleagues is that they lead with their strength of personality. and their own experiences and their own stories. And I have a fundamental disagreement with that, because being human means, by definition, being limited in what you see, what you experience, what you observe. By definition, it's limited. And we're talking about potentially millions of people. How can what your very limited and provincial view of something be applicable to the lives of millions? So this is the reason why I turn to objective measures, data, statistics, empirical evidence, and to try to understand them as best I can and relate them to real-time phenomena occurring on the ground of a 21st century Black American dating landscape, and go from there. So I think the reason why a lot of these coaches don't do that is because they are coming from their own unique perspectives. Most dating coaches for on both sides, Black female side, Black male side, most of these people are, in the 20% group. So they're going to have a very different experience from guys in the 80% group, which is another reason why I wrote the book. There needs to be, why can't the guys from the 80% group write a book? Or why can't the guys from the 80% have a seat at the table? Or why can't the 80% guys have a voice? That's something else that the book seeks to challenge. Why should only the select guys have a voice?
That's true.
So,
Like, well, and the 20% doesn't have to write a book, because they're busy living life because they're getting things that they want, and everybody can already see what they do. So
right.
I think the people that should be writing a book is the 80%, because nobody's really listening and taking time to understand.
Right.
Now, look, so this comment on screen: if Dr. Boyce can get married in ARC, so can Obsidian one day. So is that off the table? Is it off the table completely, though, Obsidian?
No, I haven't even need to get married.
So you're not gonna be one of those 60-year-olds that's like, hey, you know what? I might as well.
No.
Okay.
But what I will say is that I am part of a cohort of Black men that we have to, all of us Black Americans, have to come to terms with a number of things. And one of those things we have to come to terms with is the fact that our world is a lot different from that of our parents, grandparents of the past, real or perceived. I think a lot of our takes on what Black America was like is more romantic than factual. But either way, our world today is a very different place. So we're going to have a lot of Black men, and by extension, a lot of Black women that will never be married. And we need to start having some, serious conversations about what that will mean going forward.
Okay, and I want to welcome George Macon to the panel. And before I do that, I just want to read Ray Alexander's response. The marriage premium positively impacts men. In the National Longitudinal Survey of Youth, married men earn 44% more, even controlling for education, experience, IQ, race, and number of children. So marriage is a good thing. It's just if you find the right match. The ideal would be you get married when you find somebody that is able to fit into your lifestyle and you into theirs, and whatever that is going to be. That's your match, is two people that fit together. That, I think, is what's helpful. If you have a toxic marriage, it's even worse than you staying single. So let's hear from George Macon. How are you today?
What's going on, y'all? What's up, Obsidian?
Hey.
I got a question for you, Obsidian. I know we know there's a large percentage of Black men or men, period, that's not getting laid. I know the perception that they put out there, but there's a lot of men that's not really getting women like that. It's a large percentage. I believe you when you say that the majority of, especially Black men, want to be in relationships. But let me ask you this question: do you think that it goes the same way for women, but in our culture, we don't know how to be in relationships. Like we got the idea in our head about being a husband or a bride, but the actual aspect of doing it, like we have no clue.
To tell you the truth, I've heard people speaking along the lines that you're talking about, George. But to tell you the truth, I honestly don't know. I haven't studied it to be able to say one way or the other. But what I will say is this: studies have shown that the majority of Black women don't want to be in a committed relationship or get married. So,
yeah, and the reason why I asked that because I know how they have studies, but when we do the eye test or we just in the communities, I see a lot of girls dealing with men. But I see a lot, like, you know, even my daughters, like I see a lot of girls dealing with men, but they make bad decisions. I see a lot of girls in relationships. But for me, I think I've come to the conclusion, being well-traveled, being places, a lot of our people, and a lot of our women, because, you know, they get stuck with the babies. A lot of our women don't know how to be in the relationships. I think a lot of them do. I think a lot of it come from, I don't want to be in a relationship because it's from bad choices or bad experiences. You know, from what I'm seeing,
could very well be. Could very well be. Yeah.
You know, I think those are the conversations. And you said I tuned in late. You said you had you writing a book.
The book is out. It's out now. So it's on sale everywhere.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm at a place now, 2021, where I'm really, instead of the arguing and fighting, I'm trying to really have more of the conversation. Me being married for so long and, in a committed relationship and raising children. And I can see both sides. I can see both sides. So I think we got to have more of the conversation. I got one last question before I jump off. I'll take my wife. For you, when you said that you was like I want to say it right. Was it a committed lifelong bachelor?
A confirmed bachelor. Yeah. A
confirmed bachelor. Is it, why, with the knowledge that you have and the rearing that you upbringing that you had, how did you end up being a bachelor? What was the situation for you where you couldn't find that right person?
Oh, that's easy. I mean, people ask, people often ask me these questions,
right?
Topaz, and I kind of chuckle, not at the people, because I'm not saying that they're mean spirited or
yeah, I'm asking that in a mean spirited.
Yeah. But it just kind of chuckled because it's so obvious. It's pretty obvious. The women that I wanted didn't want me, and the women that wanted me, I didn't want. And in a free world, and I think this is, and I do write about this in the Book of Obsidian. I think a lot of Black Americans are still grappling with what it means to be free. So many of us are still wedded to survival. So if you think about it, you don't have a lot of time to be frivolous or picky or choosy or kind of masticate on first world problems when you're trying to get by day to day. And there are real questions about where your next meal is coming from. And you have real concerns about night riders riding around in hoods and sheets and stuff like that. So for a lot of us, this idea of being free, this idea of not having to worry about where your next meal is coming from. The biggest issue on the health side for Black Americans, Black women especially, is obesity, not scarcity. So for a lot of us, it's still kind of odd for us to accept that we're free.
Right.
And Black men of a previous generation married in part because they had to.
Right. It was. I believe that we married. I believe that went for both of us. We understood the struggle that we was going through. It was a different time, a different world. We understood our roles to each other because of the overt oppression we was under. But right. let me ask you this then, because I understand what you say when you say the girls that you wanted didn't want you, and the ones that wanted you didn't want them. Because listen, we both from Philadelphia, been one of the blackest cities in America. Even though I was in the street hustling, getting money, even for the so-called Pookie and Ray Ray, we had the same issues. Some of the hot chicks you want, they don't want you. Or when you was younger, they want the older guy. Or it went like that. But I just figure, like, in a city like this that we live in, you tell me if I'm wrong. Like in a city like Philadelphia, you got your ratchet Riri's. you got your up, your upscale chick, but then you also got the chick in the middle, that is dateable. Like we got black women all over the place here in Philadelphia. You know what I mean? So I mean, a person like you, even though we disagree on certain things, I believe that you're intelligent. Like it's kind of like shocking for you to not have a woman the way you actually break stuff down in a city like Philadelphia. That's why I asked that.
It's actually not that shocking at all. I was looking at, and now that we're having this conversation, I'll probably be prompted to go back and look up demographic data here. Philadelphia has Philadelphia has a relatively low black marital rate. It tracks with the national data. Not many black people here are married, believe it or not.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I was just saying that for me, the way I see it in this city, you have, like, depending on which area you want to be in, you got different areas that you can pick from because the city is so big and there's so many different, like, it's not just one group of black people here. Like, like I said, you want to get shot at or go over here, you can go over that side. You want to go upscale, you go to Mount Airy and East Oak Lane, and like we got different places where you can go to and meet women. I don't know, man. It's just like, but it's a tough conversation because I get what you're saying when you say the girls that I wanted didn't want me, because I think men experience that everywhere though.
Yeah. Yeah, it becomes a question of the devil in the details. But yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. Now I'm kind of motivated to go and look at some data for Philadelphia. See what I can find. But these very good questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump off, but yeah, I wanted us to really build on that because, like I said, where we come from, like a lot of people don't know, we got whole neighborhoods where they ain't nothing but black people. You know, what I mean? City like Philadelphia. So and up there where you from, that's not where the Ratchets are from. The Ratchets is from, you got to go into Germantown. Where you at is where the decent black people are.
Well, yeah.
Getting a little crazy now.
I'm very familiar with where the quote unquote ratchet black women are. In Philadelphia,
you never slid over into the ratchet tree just to have a little fun. I'm sitting like the girl. Because while y'all talking about it, since y'all on the subject, I just thought this question. So I'm sitting. You ain't never went over there and bit somebody over somebody else's couch in the ratchet side. You ain't never done that.
You don't want to date. You don't want to kiss and tell.
Hey, so bad. Obsidian from North Philly. He's seen him. He had him.
I know he has. Obsidian. First of all, with Obsidian's attitude, he can't tell me that he ain't bust out. I do think Obsidian gets wild when he not on YouTube. Okay, I think he has a wild streak.
I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna keep it a buck. Obsidian. Let's keep it real. Unfortunately, some of the best looking girls or some of the girls with the best work come from those areas. Unfortunately.
Oh yeah, there is. Well, Amber Rose is from South Philly, so there you go.
Of course, they come from. So I get it. The same way they always say girls pick wrong guys. I mean, some of the girls that we like just come from that. Like a lot of times, guys don't like the square chick. She's boring. She's not exciting. Her butt ain't right. Like I'm just men are visual. So I get what you're saying as a man. So I'm gonna jump off. Thanks for taking my questions though.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, thanks for coming up, George Macon. Always a pleasure. So Obsidian, it's interesting that you're writing a book about height because, as a woman that's tall, I do get discriminated in the dating field.
Yeah, although it won't be focused on,
I know you're not. You're going to talk about men, right?
Yeah, although it won't be focused on that, but I probably will make an honorable mention of the fact of what you're talking. I think you're like 5'10".
Yeah.
Yeah, I will make an honorable mention of the fact that yes, taller women do experience, and I'm talking about in the mating context, taller women do experience some degree of, for lack of a better way of putting this, discrimination. I'm very careful. I'm very careful using that word in a dating context, and I explain why in the book. But yeah, they do experience that because taller men, which taller women tend to be more attracted to, for whatever reason, and we can debate what they are, but they tend to be with women that are markedly shorter than themselves.
They like short women.
Yeah, we're talking about, shorter in relation to themselves. Actually, it would be more like average height for women. But yeah, we're talking about the guy that's like 6'4" and he's with a woman that's barely 5'3", that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, that's what I see a lot of.
Yeah. The challenge. Now that I think about it, I think I will write about this in the book because it relates back to the theme. Studies have shown that shorter guys actually have no problems dating taller women. It's the other way around.
Right. Yeah, most of the men that activate me or approach me are usually around 5'8" ish, and they're like, "Oh, I'm cool with it. It's whatever. I'm fine with it." And they literally don't keep bringing that up in the relationship. They are truly telling the truth when they say they're not, prejudiced. And a lot of men around 5'8", 5'7" say that they enjoy having a taller woman. They want that, and I don't understand why.
Yeah. So, one potential solution for taller ladies is to consider shorter guys.
Right.
Now that runs, that's a counterintuitive thing, but it does hold up with the data. Plus, I do talk about this in the current book that, I think it was NYU, New York University, and I want to say University of Virginia, but don't hold me on that, but definitely NYU. They did a big study on this and found that shorter men make for better husbands, and by extension, you can extrapolate that out to boyfriends, long-term mates, and so a taller woman is probably doing better off getting with a shorter guy. I will say this too. This is something I want to write about in the book too.
And hold on, let me interject this at the point where you said, so it can make sense. And this is the thing, when I don't have a lot of stress in the dating area, I've only had a few problems with men in terms of dating. My history of dating and my stories in dating, there's a few outliers that just did something really crazy, but for the most part, it's been pretty peaceful. And that is, it's men that are 5'10", 5'9". I haven't dated a man that was 5'8" or lower. It's been 5'9" where they're an inch shorter than me. It looks worse when I have on heels, but they are okay with it. They want me to go ahead and wear the heels because I want to. So I haven't had a whole lot of bad experiences in dating. So that might be a very true thing.
Yeah, what I will write about in the book though is how, since it's going to be a dating and heightism, but essentially short guys' perspective on this, is that it's been now I will divulge this. It's been my personal experience that quite a few women, and I'm including the tall ladies like you now, quite a few of them are in the closet.
In the closet?
Yeah.
In what manner? Not that you did not what I'm thinking, huh?
Oh yeah, they're in the closet. They're short.
Obsidian, come on, man. Now look, I cannot allow you to just say that on the panel of a channel of a tall woman. I'm not like, okay, so taller women just happen to be in the closet. Seriously.
Oh yeah, they're in the closet because they're closet secret short guy lovers.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I get enough of that with men telling me that I have a man's height. I thought you were talking about the traditional version of it, but they like shorter men. You know what? And I was gonna say that though, is that society, like a relationship with a tall woman and a short man is going to, every day that they go out, there's gonna be somebody that thinks that they're just so innovative with their comment. It's like a competition for who can say the most outlandish shit to this couple. Like, I don't understand why everybody thinks that their comment is just so groundbreaking. Like, I've never heard that before. It gets old. But yeah, it happens.
So I've noticed, and again, I'm drawn in part, not totally, but in part on my own personal experience. Yeah, there have been taller black women who are kind of like in the closet about it. They find the intimacies with the shorter guys. When I say shorter guys, I'm talking about 5'7" and below. So they find the intimacies to be really good. A lot of shorter guys make for really good lovers, but they bring themselves.
They got something to prove, Obsidian.
Yeah, I mean they can't bring themselves to be public with it because shame, and they get ribbed, and their own insecurities and stuff like that. So there's a lot of women, a lot of taller women in Black America have, shorter guys for some good times, and they kind of do it on the quiet. So, the down low applies to more than just, the rainbow thing. It applies to other things too.
Anything that's secret. Okay. So
Yeah.
Nameless says most taller women I deal with really go out of their way to act more feminine, but most tall women simply feel less feminine when they're with shorter guys, especially if more shorter. Now, it's not just like an inherent feeling, right? If nobody was paying attention, like if these were the last two people on earth, it would be perfectly fine. Nobody would care, right?
That would be true in public.
Yeah.
But that is not true in private. I'm telling you, there's a lot of women. I'm talking about tall women now. I'm not talking about shorter women or women of average height. I'm talking about women like yourself, 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1". I'm telling you, there are a lot of them that are short guy lovers in the closet.
Okay. Then Viking Paradigm says, I'm 5'9" and my younger brothers are 6'2" or 6'3". I've always done better with women than them because I'm a way better deal. Well, you're older. So of course they're, the older person is gonna have the better experience.
Yeah. So yeah, that is something I had planned to write about. So this will be something I'll, devote a chapter maybe to, because there is something to be said for taller women having a hard time on the mating market. But that being said, a lot of their problem is really all in their own head, because like I said, I've known women
in their own head, but it was placed there by society, though. Obsidian
could be, but I will say this: I've known taller women who keep going back to the shorter guys for some bedroom action. Now, what's that all about?
Because as long as nobody see you, you still have a good time. And it's mean. It's messed up, because I feel like if they come back to you for that, then they should be willing to be seen with you in public. But yeah, that's
now it's not like the guys have a problem with it, because guys,
they don't.
The thing is, you're getting laid by a leggy, so and so. So the good time was had by all. I'm just simply saying that I think it's an interesting part of the heightism piece that is never openly discussed. That there are tall women who are getting some. Okay, look, if you can't make it happen with the guys that you would like to be with, so you're like yourself, 5'10", you're attracted to a guy 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and for whatever reason you can't get to them, you're just going to go without. And you're looking at these shorties, he's kind of short, but he is kind of cute, and he okay, so you get with him, behind the closed door, and then you find out it's really great. And then I've had women, they'd be like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, or they're really in a quandary about it. Like, what do I don't know what to do, because, he's really good that way, but I don't want to be seen in public with him. So
listen, you got to just take the daggers, okay? You got to just be ready to take the arrows initially until people get tired, until it's no longer funny.
Yeah. And you have to be an extraordinary person to be fair to ladies. You have to be a really tough, thick-skinned person to kind of deal with, especially in the Black American context. Let's be honest, Black American culture in general can be pretty rough. And
Black culture believes that they should be able to say whatever, and that you're a strong person if you can handle it and not get upset about it. So you don't get the privilege of never having to hear negative things when you're in the Black culture. They make it a personal point, like they're doing you a favor, to come up to you and say negative stuff, and you got to just you won't have a decent life if you can't handle it.
Yeah, so that is something I want to write about. God willing, and the Creek Don't Rise, it'll come out next year. So that is something that I think it will be an interesting topic.
Right, I do think so. I will say you're always working. There's always something, churning in that brain of yours. So that's kind of why I wanted to do the interview. I know I gave you a little bit of grief before you wrote the book. I do enjoy your reaction to stuff, so that's kind of why I did it. It wasn't personal. I knew you were going to write the book. I knew it was going to be good, but I had to just do it because it's funny to me.
Yeah, it's been it's been a very interesting ride, and it's going to be interesting to see where things go from here.
Okay, so he says, I get your point, but one of my bros is only a year younger and he even has less game. Game trumps all. Yeah, okay, so Obsidian,
Yeah.
so where are you on this game versus lame debate?
Game versus lame? What do you mean?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's a whole thing in your sector of Black YouTube. They had a whole big, fiasco with game, and then men who believed that game doesn't matter, they were being called lame, and they kind of owned the term. So then it became the game versus lame debate.
Well,
basically, do you feel like game is necessary for you to be considered a man that can get what he wants out of life?
Okay, so I do consider game some degree of game proficiency to be mandatory for the vast majority of men. For the 20% of guys who already have what women want, it's either redundant or it's a nice plus. But for the guys, the 80% of guys that women, more or less ain't feeling, you're going to need some degree of game proficiency to kind of, help you out. Is it the end all be all? No. Is it foolproof? No. Is it something that is flawless? No. But you do need mating tactics and strategies, and that's all the game is. Mating tactics and strategies for men. That's all it is. And you do need some degree of mating tactics and strategies, especially if you're on the 80% side of the ledger.
And, just from my life experience, I think that all things in moderation is a good thing to live by. And I feel like you do need to have both. You need to be intelligent and you also need to have game. And I think that the best person that's going to be able to reach self-actualization, to have a life that they can create and command, is going to be a person that has both and knows when to use them. Like the wise mind, you need emotions and you need logic. It's just in what ratio do you apply them to whatever specific situation. You can't live a life where you only have one or the other. So I don't understand what the point is for the debate. I just kind of figured maybe y'all had not you, Obsidian, but the men had their reason for having that debate. But I do think you need both. You can't be completely all gamed up and no intelligence, no skills, and you can't be all intelligence and skills with no game. There's going to be time. Life makes you understand the point of having balance. If you do one or the other, there's going to be something you miss out on by not having the other side.
Yeah, but I will say this, that the smartest guy, what might not be known to my fellow brothers in the Black manosphere is that game and pickup was developed by really geeky, nerdy guys on the white side. And
that's who needed to know.
Yeah. And the guys who are really good with it tend to be really brainy and geeky and nerdy. Those are the guys who really are good with it. I mean, they have it down to a science and break it down to its very last compound. Those tend to be the guys who are really, really good at it. So there's that.
Yeah. Sir Anthony says Gen Xers were raised on the idea of game. It's not as complicated as younger generations make it. It may be an outdated concept. It's never going to be outdated because, see, here's the thing. Game is basically, in my opinion, it's knowing how to read the other side and be able to effectively convince them to do what it is you want. So it's not going, in my opinion, it can't be outdated because you're always going to have times where you want to convince somebody to do something that they may otherwise say no to. That keeps you from having to have a door being closed for you. We want to strive to be able to open as many doors for what we want and what we need as possible. So if you are capable of doing that, it can't be outdated. It's just going to change in how you do it, like what you say, what your reaction has to be. That's going to change, but you still have to be able to read, the situation and understand the other person.
Yeah. So, wow. It's been, wow, I didn't know I was going to be on here this long. I got to go have something to eat. My stomach is, flip flops here. So, yeah, I really had a great time, having this conversation, Topaz. I was very pleasantly surprised.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Obsidian. I'm glad I really appreciate you being able to come over and talk about the book. And I've got to say, I won't use the word surprise because I did know, like, Obsidian, you're not a person that has no skills. Okay. I knew it was going to be a good book. So I will say that what was put in there, I did enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad that you did. And I hope everybody else enjoys it too. And to be continued, because something tells me this won't be the last conversation we have.
You know what? You're right. Because one, I do want to talk about this book when you dropped the one about advice to women. I do want to talk about it. I'm already interested. Okay. And then if there's anything else, like everybody that has my email, if they send me topics they want to hear my opinion on, I do focus on balance, feeling self-esteem as a Black person, overcoming some of the tragedies that we still hold on to. So that's what this channel is about. So the people who come back and watch this replay, that's kind of, I'm glad that you were here and were able to answer the questions. And I don't want people to, I want people to understand that you do, you are involved in being Black. There was at one point people were saying you didn't like Black people or whatever. None of that.
Yeah,
that's actually true. I didn't get that. So I thought it was time to spotlight on that. I don't get that from you.
Yeah.
I don't get that idea. I don't get that vibe from you. So thank you so much for coming by. Thank you so much for answering
thank you.
all of the questions.
Grab
well, you have my email, so if you think of anything else, please just let me know. I'm open to it.
We'll do. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye, Obsidian.
All right.
Okay, so bye, everybody. Thank y'all so much for coming through. Thank you so much for participating in the chat. Share out the stream. Like, share, subscribe, and see y'all later. Bye.